So let's not quibble over the definition of words. Let's talk about some. Let's get to the guts of the matter.
But that's what people are upset about. People are upset about you using the specific word to begin with. That was a tweet that sparked the outrage. So I think the definition of genocide matters. Now, what you've described is not a genocide. So you wrote here, I was proud to march against COVID lockdowns. Tomorrow, I'll be proud to march against what can only be described as a genocide. What are you defining genocide as that you reach a conclusion that it's only can be described as that?
Okay, so in World War II, in the final days of World War II, in the Pacific Theatre, the Americans killed about 2 million Japanese civilians. Now, that is not classified as a genocide because that was a war. Now, we're not going to debate tonight whether that was moral or not. But after the war was finished, after the war, the Americans rebuilt Japan with love. And Japan's a very successful, happy, liberal democracy since. So what's happening now is the definition of genocide is an attempt to eradicate a people and not kill them all, but just have their identity, their cultural identity, expunged off the planet. Now, in Israeli politics, since the 1920s, since the Zionist settlers started coming in a fairly big way, it's been roughly divided between two groups: moderate Zionists and radical Zionists. And the leadership has swung now the back and forth, but the moderate Zionists have, on at least a dozen occasions, done their very best to have a peace deal.
I want to work through it. Forget going back in history. I just want to understand the definition of genocide that you're saying it can only be described as that. What's the definition?
About 9 hours ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu announced to the world that the goal now is the full occupation of Gaza. They basically want to put yes, it is. Yes, they want to push them out, kill a lot of them. A lot have been killed already. It's about 100 to 1 compared to what happened, the atrocity on October the 7th. So they're trying to push them out, make life so undifficult. They've blown up the infrastructure. They're just hoping that they go away. President Trump said, "Oh, well, we'll relocate them," and Netanyahu said, "Oh, that sounds good." So, but he's openly said it today. Avi, I reckon I love.
Hold on. Let's just work it one thing at a time. So your definition of genocide is the occupation of Gaza.
Well, it's the occupation. It's smashing up all the infrastructure, and it's just trying to basically get them to move. There was talk about moving them to the Sinai today. So they just basically want them out of there. But this is not all Israelis. This is not all Zionists. There's a very big peace movement in Israel.
Let's not cast judgment on any group or divider. I want to get clear on the definitions here, because I think there's a problem in the definition to begin with. The definition of genocide from a legal perspective is the intentional destruction of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. What you're describing, if it comes true, so the idea of pushing them out, while it may be a war crime, let's say, is maybe ethnic cleansing. It's not genocide. Occupying is not genocide. These words have specific meanings, and I think it's important that we don't do what the left does and just appropriate the meanings. So according to the legal definition, do you still stand by genocide?
You know, I saw Professor John Mearsheimer speak in Sydney about 6 months into this conflict, and he said that the biggest enemy that the radical Zionists have got is TikTok. He said people are seeing unbelievable images coming through. And this is why, Avi, I reckon I'm a bigger supporter of Israel than you. Because what's happening is all around the world, support for Israel is collapsing.
You're not answering the question. Okay.
Israel, so in Australia, it's down to 14% of Australians now support what Netanyahu's doing. So let's not quibble over the definition of words.
But that's what people are upset about. People are upset about you using the specific word to begin with. That was a tweet that sparked the outrage. So I think the definition of genocide matters. Now, what you've described is not a genocide. It is maybe ethnic cleansing if it pans out the way you're saying. It's either occupation or ethnic cleansing. It's not genocide, and neither have happened. So how can you tweet that it can only be described as genocide when neither of what you've even described, so the occupation and or the ethnic cleansing hasn't even happened, but the genocide definitely hasn't happened?
if we boil it down, there's only two outcomes here. We either have a two-state solution or we have ethnic
I'm not,
cleansing.
but
Now,
you
who are the
used,
two groups that want
John.
the ethnic cleansing?
Okay.
Hamas and the radical Zionists.
Okay, so we agree there's no genocide until now. Can we agree on that? It hasn't happened. There's not a genocide yet.
No, it looks like a genocide to me.
Define
social
what
media is
so it looks like a genocide because the
international criminal
next week,
the international court of criminal justice has called it a genocide. Okay,
No,
but look,
no,
why do we want to quibble? Why do we want to quibble about words?
No, but facts matter, words matter, and they didn't. Are you talking about the ICJ ruling?
The ICJ.
That there's a plausible case to be made in court to argue that it's possible that there's a genocide. They did not. They have not.
And how long ago was that? How long? I mean, things keep escalating and getting worse.
They have not ruled a genocide. A genocide. Listen. At what point do you think this genocide started? At what point? Because a lot of the people you marched with, when it comes to the Marxists and the Islamists that marched on the Sydney Harbour, they would say that the genocide started, 50 years ago. When do you think or 75 years ago, if you ask them, when do you think the genocide started?
Well, no, I would say it's something that has been ramping up, and this is why, look, October the 7th was an attempt of genocide, okay, by Hamas, okay, okay. Now, then there was initially unbelievable public support all around the world for Israel at the time.
When did the genocide start? When did the genocide that you say that you can only describe it as, when did it start? I know that there was great support right after October 7th. I don't need to hear that. I'm asking specific questions around what you've written and what you've said. When did the genocide start?
Look, it was there was clearly an attempt very, very early on that the radical Zionist faction in Israeli politics said, this is an opportunity, let's make the most of it. Now, look, President Trump, who I've normally been a supporter of, he seems to have given them unconditional support to just go and get the job done. You know, Avi, and I know that there has been a term amongst radical Zionists to go out and called mowing the lawn. What does mowing the lawn mean, Avi?
Go tell me.
You know what it means, and I'll tell you. And it's what radical Zionists say, that every now and again we've got to go out there and mow the lawn. We've got to wipe out a whole ton of Palestinians just to keep them under control.
That's complete nonsense. What you're saying.
Well,
so
it's all
the way it's framed
that
is complete nonsense. It's referring to every time that there's over the last since 2005, since Israel left Gaza, when Hamas decides to start firing a heap of rockets, that they've got to cut the problems that were coming in at them, deal with it, and quash the problem. It's not talking about killing a heap of Palestinians. And the idea that so from your answer, you're telling me that the genocide started before October 7th. I wouldn't have classified it. So you're saying since October 7th, it's been a genocide?
Look, I think it's been ramping up over the sort of last 4 or 5 months. That's when the social media feed of people all around the world are seeing absolutely horrific images, and this is why countries like Canada and France and Ireland and half of Europe are being very critical.
That's not why countries like that. And you know full well the reason why some of these countries are jumping on the bandwagon has more to do with their either internal politics within Australia, Canada, the UK, and also to undermine Trump. They all don't like Trump, but none of them have the balls.
No, look, it's not that. It's not that. It's people are sick.
Let me ask you,
how many are horrified of inhumane?
How many people have been killed in total in Gaza, terrorists and civilians together?
Well, I think, look, it's hard to know, but I think the consensus is around 70,000. But I mean, there's a lot more. That's people who've directly killed, but then there's a lot of people who can't get to hospitals now because there is no hospital. There's a lot of secondary effects which we're not aware of. There's been a massive decline in birth rates. So there's been. There's 70,000.
I think Hamas's own numbers is 60,000 at the moment. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 70,000.
Same ballpark.
How many bombs have they dropped on Gaza? Do you know?
I don't know, but I mean, I see images of Gaza, and I see, as far as the eye can see,
you sound like a lefty. I get it. You've seen shocking images. I'm not downplaying the horrific situation in Gaza.
Yeah. Well,
just put your emotions aside for a second. Let's talk rational, because you're a rational guy.
Debate. This was a debate, Avi. Okay, so far it's been an interrogation. Okay, so I would like to ask you a question. I'd like to put a counterfactual to you. After October the 7th, when there was none of this rolling your eyes.
No. I'll let you. I'll let
I
you do
want you to
that.
have an open
I'll let
mind.
you do that. Let me finish the point here, right? So, how many bombs? You don't know how many bombs were dropped. I'll tell you. There's about 70 to 100,000 bombs is what they're estimating that has been
that's
dropped
a
on
lot.
Gaza. Exactly, but there's more bombs have been dropped on Gaza than total people killed. So, if Israel was committing a genocide, yeah, which by the definition, not your weird, not real definition, but by the actual definition, intent is the important part, to destruct of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. They're doing a pretty bloody bad job if they can't even kill one person that they're trying to eradicate for every bomb. Wouldn't you say? If you enjoyed this clip from my live 2-hour debate with John Ruddick, make sure to like, comment, then share it far and wide, and then head over to theopposition.show and watch the entire thing. Theopposition.show.